All right, let's talk about what might be one of the biggest AI breakthroughs we've seen in years, Google DeepMind's Project Genie. And look, we're not just talking about generating another image or a cool video clip. No, this is about creating entire playable worlds, basically just from an idea.
You know, the researchers behind this, they're calling it a fundamental shift in digital media. And honestly, they're not wrong. Think about it. We're going from an era where you had to meticulously build virtual worlds, brick by brick, polygon by polygon, to an age where we can just dream them into existence. It's a huge deal.
So just picture this for a second. What if you could type a sentence, something like, a rainy cyberpunk alleyway at night, and instead of just getting a picture, you get the actual alley, a place you can walk down, look around in, maybe even interact with. I mean, that's the wild promise of Genie. But to really get how we even got here, we've got to talk about a core concept in AI. And that concept is something called a world model. Now, this is the foundational idea, the engine that makes all of this Genie magic possible. It's really what sets it apart from pretty much any other AI tool you've probably played with.
So what is a world model? Well, the easiest way to think about it is like giving an AI an imagination, right? It doesn't just see a picture of a ball. It understands that if you drop that ball, it's going to fall. It learns the rules of reality, the physics, not because someone coded them in, but just by watching. It figures it out on its own.
And this is the absolute key difference between Genie and something you've probably heard of, like Sora. See, Sora is totally passive. You give it a prompt, it spits out a video, it's a one-way street. A world model like Genie, though, that's a conversation. It generates the next frame based on what you do. You press the jump button and it has to figure out, okay, what happens next? That interactivity, that's everything.
Which, of course, brings us to the star of the show, Genie 3. And this is a big deal, because we're not talking about some dusty research paper or a behind-the-scenes tech demo anymore. No, this is a real, accessible product. It's a massive leap forward for these world models.
So on January 29, 2026, Google basically opened the doors and made this thing public for the first time. They're calling it Project Genie, and it lets AI Ultra subscribers start messing around with these generative worlds. This is really the moment that tech officially left the lab and entered the real world.
And you have to appreciate the speed here. The pace of progress has been just incredible. I mean, in less than 2 years, we went from Genie 1, which was this kind of glitchy 2D pixel art thing, to Genie 3, which is creating interactive, high-def 3D worlds in real time. The jump in quality, in complexity, it's massive.
Okay, so the big question is, how does this thing actually work? How does the magic happen? Well, to get that, we need to look at the really fascinating core challenge that the engineers at DeepMind had to solve.
And here's the puzzle. Think about it. All those millions of hours of gameplay videos on YouTube or Twitch, they don't come with a file that says, okay, at this timestamp, the player pressed the A button. So how in the world did DeepMind teach Genie to be controllable? How did it learn the language of action just by passively watching videos? Well, it all boils down to this really clever 3-step process. The best way to think of it is like a visual autocomplete, like when your phone guesses the next word you're going to type. So, step 1, it tokenizes. It basically learns to see the world in blocks, turning a video frame into a kind of language. Then, step 2, it predicts. It's got this huge transformer brain that guesses the very next block, or visual word, based on what it just saw, and crucially what action you just took. And finally, step 3, it renders. It turns all those predicted blocks back into a full 720p picture for you to see. It's literally writing the next page of the story, visually, in real time.
But here's the secret sauce that makes the world actually feel real and persistent. It's this thing they're calling special memory. See, the early versions had a huge problem. They had 0 object permanence. An object would literally vanish from existence the moment it went off screen. But Genie 3, it remembers. If you walk past a car, turn a corner, and then walk back, the AI remembers that car was there, and it puts it back. And that one little feature is the key to making the world feel stable, to making it feel like a place you can actually explore.
Okay, but let's take a deep breath. As absolutely revolutionary as all this sounds, we have to remember, Project Genie is a version 1 product. It's brand new. And it has some really significant and, let's be honest, kind of frustrating limitations right now.
There's a quote from one analysis that I think just nails where we're at today. It calls this the Netscape moment for generative worlds. And that's perfect, right? It's like the very first web browser. It was slow, it was clunky, but it proved the whole idea of the internet was real. That's Genie. It proves the concept, but man, it is far from perfect.
And when you look at the raw numbers, you see this weird disconnect. On one hand, the resolution and frame rate are fantastic. It looks sharp, it looks smooth, almost like you're watching a movie. But then you look at the latency. That's the delay between when you press a button and when the AI responds, and it is high. Oh, and every single time you play, you get kicked out after exactly 60 seconds.
Yeah, that input lag, that's the real killer right now. We're talking over half a second. To put that in perspective, it makes any kind of fast-paced game feel like you're wading through thick mud. That immediate sense of control, that connection to your character, it's just not there yet. And that really breaks the immersion.
And then there's this other wild and frankly fascinating concept they're calling dream logic. Because the physics aren't hard-coded, right? They're just learned. That means they're probabilistic. So a car you drive into a wall will probably crash. But sometimes, it might just phase right through it like a ghost. Just because the AI hallucinates some weird, surreal outcome. It's an incredible peek into how this thing thinks, but you can imagine it makes consistent, predictable gameplay pretty much impossible right now.
Okay, so limitations aside, let's zoom out. Because despite all these early issues, the long-term implications here are profound. This isn't just a cool new toy. This is a potential foundation for entire industries. So let's talk about why this really changes everything.
First up, gaming. For like 40 years, games have been built one way, with engines like Unreal or Unity, meticulously crafted with polygons and lines of code. Genie just throws that whole rulebook out the window. It proposes a completely new path called neural rendering. Worlds aren't built anymore, they're hallucinated. And it's a big if, but if this scales, the barrier to making a game could collapse from needing a huge team and years of work to maybe just a single person on a single afternoon.
And this might actually be even more important than gaming. This could completely transform robotics. Think about it. Training a robot in the real world is incredibly slow, it's super expensive, and it can be dangerous. Genie is basically an infinite virtual training ground. It can dream up millions of unique scenarios to teach an AI agent like Google's other projects SEMA or RTX how to deal with the messy, unpredictable physics of our world, all before it ever powers on a single physical motor.
And all of this really points towards the holy grail, artificial general intelligence, or AGI. A lot of researchers believe that for an AI to be truly intelligent, it needs the ability to plan, to simulate the future in its head. Well, Genie is that simulator. You can think of it as the prefrontal cortex for an AI, giving it the ability to do mental time travel, to ask what happens if I do this before it actually does it. That's a critical step.
So when we look back, we shouldn't see Genie 3 as some finished product. Not at all. We should see it as day one. This is the starting pistol for a whole new era of generative reality, a kind of technology that was, let's be real, pure science fiction just a few years ago. And now, it's something you can access from your own home.
What this really means is that we've just stepped into the holodeck. Yeah, it's still buffering, it's a little laggy, but the simulation has officially begun. This is the training ground for our future games, our future robots, and maybe future AGI itself. Which leaves us with this one big final question to chew on. As this technology gets faster and better and more realistic, what happens when these generated worlds designed to teach an AI about our reality, become completely indistinguishable from it? What happens when the simulation doesn't have an off switch? That's a question we're all going to have to start thinking about, probably a lot sooner than we think.